Ricky, let's move into Paul George. If you're wondering why my face is like this, this is a part of a whole podcast. If you're joining us on YouTube, this is a part of a whole podcast where we reacted to LeBron James signing to the Lakers. And I made a bet saying that LeBron James wouldn't go to the Lakers. And if he did, I'd paint my face purple and yellow. No, this is not blackface. This is red and purple kids' face paint mixed together. Hopefully it will wash off later, but my face is so dry. But let's jump into this, Ricky. We're talking about Paul George re-signing with OKC. You've talked about Russell Westbrook not winning a finals ever in his career, that you think that's never going to happen. But let's give him credit. Paul George stayed because of Russell Westbrook, and Russ isn't a teammate killer like people try to paint him to be.
This was a very confusing decision for me. Like, when I was thinking about it, my thought process is, it's not like when LeBron left for Miami. Like, I don't hate the decision. I can't judge Paul George for saying, hey, I want to stay in Oklahoma City. But I disagree with the move. Like, for me, I was so confused also with the 4 years, the player option on the 4. I get for the Thunder, it's a very Thunder-friendly contract because he'll stay the 3, opt out, then do a 5-year deal with a player option on that 5th year, and they basically get him for 7 years. For me, though, through this documentary that he had on SportsCenter, I know part 3 hasn't come out yet, but part 1 and 2, he said, I want to win championships. So for me, I look at it and go, why did you stay in OKC? Because for me, I don't think Russell Westbrook wins an NBA championship. And also, what has changed? Like, I get Thunder fans. I would be excited too. For the first time, somebody didn't spur you. Like, I get the James Harden one was Presti and them didn't want to pay him.
No, the owners didn't. Presti,
well, the owners didn't want to pay him.
Presti isn't the owner.
Kevin Durant he just left because he was unhappy with the situation with him and Russ. Finally, someone picked you, so I can understand why you're happy. But I just sit there and I want to be the voice of reason to go, what's really changed on that roster? Like, this is a roster that lost to a bunch of rookies in Utah.
But here's the thing: is Paul George, he didn't have a great playoff series against Utah. So I mean, again, he might get another shot.
That's the unfinished business.
Yeah, he has unfinished business, and it wasn't Russ's fault that they lost. Russ played great in that series. Paul George needs to come back and he needs to play better. But the biggest thing that's holding them down right now is that Carmelo contract. And I do want to throw this out there. People are yelling at me saying oh, they're getting close to $300 million. I know that, but also the biggest thing is just getting Carmelo's $27 million off because every other of the other contracts that aren't Russ and PG-13, they're movable. They're not that bad. And again, Adams is a very valuable player, but he's a guy that you can move on from if you want to build out a super team and get a third star in there. Adams is a really good starter. I don't know if he's a star. So I think one thing that people need to take into account is that Presti has made massive deals and has brought an unreal team to Oklahoma City. I mean, if you look at the all-time Thunder team, I know that some of these players ended up being traded for these players, but you got Russ at the point, you have James Harden at the shooting guard, you have Paul George at small forward, KD at power forward, you have Steven Adams at center, then you have Cantor coming off the bench, Oladipo coming off the bench. I mean, that 7 is unreal. And what Presti's been able to do and build in OKC is a testament to how great of a GM he is. So I think if you just look at the baseline of Oklahoma City, that they are going to have Russell Westbrook and Paul George for the next 4 years is something that I think Thunder fans should be pumped about. And I don't think it's a bad move for Paul George because, yes, I understand that right now this team cannot win a championship. And if I'm saying who can win a championship right now, the Lakers with LeBron and the young kids they have right now, because right now the only other move they've made is KCP. I would say that the Lakers have a better shot of winning a championship than OKC does because you have LeBron James. But that doesn't mean Oklahoma City's done, and they still have time to build out a team. So I think right now, yes, this team is not going to win a championship, but that doesn't mean it needs to be right now. And this isn't something where Russ needs to win one right now. I think Russ is a guy that is maybe like a Karl Malone, maybe like a Gary Payton, where he just needs one ring to be like, all right, this guy was a really great player in the time he was. I think Paul George just needs that one ring. This isn't like LeBron where they're building a legacy to become the greatest of all time. This is just for them to say, we are great players and we were able to win in our era. And again, you have the years to do that with Paul George committing for 4 years, I think it was. 4 years, $147 million. 4 years, $147 million. I know that they are getting up in the luxury tax, but Presti can move some of these contracts. And the biggest thing is, are they going to stretch Carmelo Anthony, which can save them $91 million?
I think the biggest challenge this year for Sam Presti is, can you move that Melo deal? And I feel like it has to be like this year to me is a wash because it's the same. You basically have the same exact team. You couldn't beat the Jazz, so you're not going to beat the Warriors, not going to beat the Rockets. And depending on if the Lakers get Kawhi, I would pick a Kawhi LeBron team over the Oklahoma City Thunder. So for me, I get that this deal is not about this year, it's about the future. But the thing I also look at is let's just go 3 years down the line. So when Paul George opts out and can sign that next deal, which they're thinking will be a 5-year deal, player option on the 5th to keep him in OKC another at least 4 years. That would put Paul George at 31. That would put Russell Westbrook at 32 with a year left on his contract before he opts out. How are the other teams going to age? Where the Rockets, like we said, this offseason might decimate them to where we expect them to be the team that almost beat the Warriors. Mm-hmm. But are they going to be the Washington Nationals of the NBA where it's like, man, you had a chance. Like the Nationals, it was the season when they shut down Strasburg. Yeah. That's your chance to win a World Series. They shut them down and got knocked out in the first round. Rockets are, you had a chance to kill the Warriors, probably would have beat the Cavs, most likely would have beat the Cavs, and you lost. So is that going to be their future? The Warriors, how much longer can they continue this dominance? And then you've got LeBron. What's that going to be like over his 4 years? And then also, I'm just going to throw it out. Look at the team in Phoenix. How do they gel in 3 years? Look at that team 3-4 years when this contract is over. What kind of a team are they going to be?
Lakers signed Lance.
Did they?
They signed Lance Stevenson.
Just blowing all over
Jesus
LeBron
Christ.
James.
This is why we don't record during fucking free agency. That's fucking hilarious. Sorry.
Not a bad pickup, though.
That's insane. This is funny.
You were looking at the camera. I'm like, you better have hit record on that camera.
I did. I'm laughing at the fact that they signed Lance Stevenson. We just record the Lakers segment. So this is why we don't do podcasts. We were saying, what's the next big move for the Lakers? It was Lance Stevenson.
That's why for me, just with the Melo thing, the last thing I'll say is it's either moving Melo or using this season as a wash. What big free agent can you bring in next year?
One thing, though, to your point, is you don't need to be the best team in a year. You just need to have the best season. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to be the most talented team. You can find a way. Let's look at that Dallas Mavericks run. Were they the best team that year? No. Miami Heat had LeBron James, D. Wade, Chris Bosh. I mean, that team shouldn't have lost. Credit to Dallas. They were a great team that gelled together, worked, and defeated a great team. You can be the underdog and win. So, again, are they going to stack up to Golden State? Are they going to stack up to Houston if they stay healthy? Probably not. But it's a big if with Steph Curry's ankles. It's a big if with Chris Paul just consistently getting injured. Yeah. And then we look at LeBron. Yes, LeBron is never getting injured, but we've also seen LeBron can be beaten if he doesn't have that help. And right now, all they've added is KCP. Will resign KCP and brought in Lance Stevenson. So right now, I don't think LeBron has that help. And you're talking about how these teams will age. Well, one thing that the Thunder will have on their side is at least experience. They'll have Russ, who's been to an NBA Finals. They'll have PG, who's been, again, in the league for a long time. So at least they'll have that veteran leadership and have that knowledge of being in a playoff. We might be talking about that Suns team being a very young team and not having that playoff experience. Yeah, or we even look at if they go up and have a bad matchup in the first round. The playoffs, anything can happen, and if you get the right matchups, you can win. So I think this team has the talent, clearly with Russ and PG. It's just about how are you going to avoid the cap hell that you are currently in, because you can stretch Melo, but that's going to be horrible for at least, because you're just going to be like $40 million against the cap. You have that just really devil's advocate of, are you going to get Carmelo off the team and make your team better, and then also probably try to move other contracts? Or are you just going to bite the bullet and possibly just take a year off again and maybe pray that Carmelo Anthony has a great year again?
I would hope that they try to move. If I'm a Thunder fan, I'm hoping they move.
But let's be realistic.
No one wants
the only way they're doing that is if they attach picks to Melo.
Exactly.
And even then, it's going to be tough for a team to take him. The only team that, and don't get mad at me for saying this, Jake said it too, the only team that I might see happening is maybe Chicago.
I mean, if we get picks, sure. I mean, that's the only reason.
But I don't know if that's smart for the Thunder, because then if you're trying to get another player, but you're also giving out assets that you could trade for guys to play alongside Russ and PG.
And I mean, for this year, I could see the Thunder getting bounced in the first round again, because the Lakers, I expect them to be a playoff team just with LeBron. I don't care if it's the 8 seed. I expect them to be a playoff team. And then if you're the Thunder, depending on how high the Lakers are, 3 or 4, that's where I'm kind of thinking the Thunder will be. You're either playing the Jazz, Pelicans, or Lakers in my mind. Yeah. Lakers will be interesting because will it be LeBron in the roster we have now with Lance Stevenson, or will they have Kawhi at that point? The Jazz, you lost to them, so I don't see why they can't beat you again. Same roster you got now. And then the Pelicans, I would almost pick the Pelicans over the Thunder if they play at the level that they were, especially before they ran into the Warriors.
It would definitely be interesting. I mean, PG would win that 3 matchup. But, I mean, Drew Holiday's one hell of a defender, and he could probably give Russ troubles. And, I mean, if they re-sign Boogie, the Pelicans, Adams is a great player.
And AD.
Yeah, Adams is a great player, but I mean, you're going up against Boogie and AD, which is going to be tough. The one thing is that Laker one though, because we've seen Paul George go up against LeBron, and he's given him tough matchups before, and that was without Russell Westbrook, and now he has other stars on that team.
He doesn't have to pass the ball to C.J. Miles and have C.J. Miles take the final
I
shot.
think with the Thunder, they're in a better position than PG was in Indiana, but LeBron could be super motivated if they get a fresh LeBron at the start of the playoffs rather than third round, second round LeBron or broken hand LeBron. They can again possibly take him down. So right now I probably would favor obviously Houston and Golden State over the Thunder, but I mean we saw last year this was the 4th best team in the West and they didn't really gel that great because of Carmelo Anthony. If they're able to at least work around Melo being on that team, then this could be a team that maybe does hit their stride and maybe does end up being the 3rd best team in the West because we were really high on them to start the season. If maybe Melo turns his attitude around, then maybe this team could be dangerous. There's a lot of ifs on this team, but again, they do have 2 great players in Paul George and Russell Westbrook. So, and the other teams can say that. Minnesota has 2 great players in Jimmy Butler and Karl-Anthony Towns.
They're going to fall apart, I think.
But that's a team that, again, I think they don't have a coach that's strong enough. Tibbs is ruining that team right now. Los Angeles does have LeBron. They have
a hard-headed coach who's very stubborn.
I think he's a bad coach right now. I would label Tibbs as a bad coach. Denver is very young. We look at San Antonio. They might just be LaMarcus Aldridge. New Orleans does have 2 great players, but you're coming off with Boogie. How good is he going to be off that injury? Utah just beat the Thunder, but that was a team that wasn't gelling, and their best player, or one of their best players, PG, didn't have one of the great series, or a great series in general. Portland has 2 great players, but we're talking about them possibly being moved. One thing that Oklahoma City does have is at least, and maybe Utah does have it, and New Orleans has it, but at least they do have two strong pillars in Russ and PG. Where Minnesota, San Antonio, and we'll even throw Portland, Denver, Los Angeles do not have those 2 strong pillars. You can say that Golden State, Houston, Utah, and New Orleans does, but outside of that, I mean they do have 2 strong pillars, and I'll give them that.
What this move shows me is that Paul George, you can't say that Paul George doesn't have a heart, because to me, I feel like, and now looking back at that 2-part series, the 3rd one, like I said, we haven't seen yet, he came from Indiana where he gave everything in. He felt like by the time he got back from his injury that they made moves, didn't consult him, and he didn't feel a part of the family. Well, the Thunder made him feel part of the family, and this move to me was basically him saying, I don't want to stab my family, these fans, in the back.
And I like that. I was crapping on Kawhi Leonard. I was crapping on good old Dennis Schroeder for that. Props to PG for that.
And that's why with me, I say I can't hate the decision. I can only disagree with it. Because
but that's what the LeBron thing too is.
Yeah,
you're going for if you're helping out your family there. So I disagree with the move, but also it's your life, LeBron.
I mean, and the only thing I was for me when I heard that Paul George is going to go to OKC, I assumed it was going to be a 2-1, not a 3-1. Basically, because I heard the agent in part 2 was like, hey, if we go with a 2-1, it gives you the flexibility then to either make a move, go somewhere else, or get more money because you'd still be below that 37-year-old cap from the CBA. So the 3-1's not the worst. Very, like I've said before, very in favor of the Thunder. It's now Sam Presti's job to make sure something becomes of this, because we were talking about pressure on LeBron to win a championship in LA. There is now, to me, with this move, You have, I almost want to say you have to win at least one championship with Russ and Paul George, or else this is a failure.
Why is that? Because, I mean, right now we look at it and they're not the favorites in the West. So I would say it's a failure if you're expected to win.
Well, I'm not saying
and then
they have
you lose.
to win this year.
But even in general, I mean, we're talking about, again, this Golden State team. I was saying this with LeBron. I don't expect him to win a title in the next 4 years. I don't really expect the Thunder to win a title in the next 4 years. Obviously, a lot can change, but I don't see that these teams winning it. So would it be a failure if you don't have that expectation? It's different for LeBron because, again, he's seen as one of the greatest players of all time. Russ and PG aren't held in that way.
Maybe not a failure for the Thunder, but on Paul George, because I feel like what'll happen is if we get to the end of the 7 years, let's say he opts out and signs the 4-1, and they don't win a single championship, we will look back at this decision and go, hey, man, if he would have went to LA, God, could you imagine LeBron, Kawhi, and Paul George? They could have won a championship, right? Yeah, you're telling me they would have won it. They would have challenged those Warriors. It would be bar talk, but that would be the talk of what would have happened if he went to LA instead of staying with small town OKC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's also give props to OKC in general, though, because, again, you're talking about LA versus OKC, and no offense to Oklahoma City residents or anything. I mean, LA is seen as a better city, and this was this guy's hometown.
It's one of the biggest markets.
Yeah, this is this guy's hometown. I mean, you won him over in a year. So
the
credit
didn't
to
even get a meeting.
Credit to the small market and credit to at least OKC because you were able to keep him around. That's a credit to the fans, and that's a credit to Sam Presti. I think in the end, even if they don't win with Russ and PG, it will still be seen as a positive for Sam Presti because he has done great things in Oklahoma City, and he has at least done his best to put them in a winning situation. I mean, before this Carmelo deal was made, people were saying, and then there was people on ESPN saying that this team could win the title. Was it a little crazy? Yes, but there were talks about that if this team gels, that they can win a title. And even now we're still looking at this team in a positive light because they do have talent on their roster. Presti has put them in the best situation that he could, and it might be different if KD would say, hey, I'm not re-signing with you, because then you could have moved him and brought even more assets to the team. So Presti, even if he doesn't win, I still think he's got to be given credit for what he's done in OKC.
The prediction I'm going to say is with these two, Paul George and Westbrook, I'm throwing Melo out the door because he's going to be gone after this year anyways. Paul George and Westbrook, when we look at them at the end of their career, their ceiling to me is if they get to the top of the mountaintop, the best they can get is how we look at John Stockton and Karl Malone. They could get to a champion.
High.
I know, but it's hey, these two were a great duo together in a small market. Oh, they got to a championship. Oh man, but they did not win those championships. That's what I see. If Russ gets back to a championship, he ain't winning it.
I don't know if they even get to a championship.
Well, because of how loaded the West is. Even the teams like the Suns are stacking up on young talent. The Mavs are looking to make a push in the next few years. The Kings are making the look a push in the next few years. We got to see what these teams do and if they overtake and kind of run right past the Thunder.
Chicago and New York, you got to step your games up. I think that's the biggest thing. And Boston's doing a great job. Philly's doing a great job. The big markets in the East are just shit in the bed right now.
The thing I love about New York is Mario Hezonja signs there, and he does a post of oh, it's great too, and it's him as a kid, with a ball, and he's got a New York shirt on. And then one comments is, yeah, we're headed to the playoffs, and the next one is, no, this is what we're headed for, and it's just a tank.
And that's the thing is New York, Chicago, and these teams just in general in the East need to pick up their game. And maybe this is going to be the movement of LeBron going out west where stars now leave the West. And maybe when Anthony Davis's contract comes up, sorry, Pelican fans, maybe he does leave.
Chicago? Oh.
Yeah, that's a possibility. If when Cat's contract comes up, Devin Booker's contract comes up, maybe we see an influx of the youth head out east. But right now, for at least the next 2 years, it's going to be a bloodbath out west. Any final thoughts, Ricky?
Well, it's going to be a bloodbath, and then it's going to be the Celtics and the Sixers.
Yeah, and I need a bath right now with this
the
face paint on there.
Looks so dry, it's starting to crack.
Oh, it is. I feel it. It's real bad. I didn't do housekeeping to start because this was just kind of thrown in together. I have not gotten any sleep this weekend. So let's do the housekeeping now. If you want to support us, check out patreon.com/mostofitpodcast. If you want to be like Jake, who joined us in the first segment, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you liked this episode, please rate us 5 stars on iTunes. It helps us immensely. We'd appreciate the love. If you're listening on Block Talk Radio, I don't think there's a rating on there, but at least thank you for listening on Block Talk Radio. If you don't want to miss any of our posts from any of our podcasts, check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. We have segments up there and full podcasts, so you do not miss your chance to listen to them. But for Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. Shout out to Dave. Sorry, buddy, that you weren't here, but you were helping. You're being a good brother and helping your brother move. So shout out to Dave and shout out to everybody that watched this today. And thank you to Jake for joining us. But for Ricky Widmer and Dave Oster, I'll throw them in there. I'm Sean Anderson, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully with no purple and gold face paint on.
Purple and old.
Purple and old.